every artist's come up is so interesting to me. It's so fascinating. There's so many similarities, but at the same time, it's so different. What do I mean by that? I was watching a guy called Henry Fong on YouTube, and I've known about Henry Fong's music for a while. He does like trap, house, anything kind of EDM-y, that kind of stuff. And he's been very open in the fact that he's been very versatile in his sound. He will completely, he will stretch his sound to make it fit the current trend, etc. But he talks more about that. But one thing that was completely different is he come through the route of like promoting nights and promotion and getting his name out in that way. My way was completely different. I've never promoted anything. So I've come for it from a completely different perspective. And by the sounds of it, my timeline, it took me a bit longer than what it took him. And obviously the landscape in the US is different to the UK. It's different to Australia, different to certain places in Europe. But one thing is in common. And the first thing is we turned up to places. We done a lot of face-to-face introductions, a lot of face-to-face relationships with people and face-to-face relationships with promoters before we were even on their radar. And Amplified did this as well on his come up. Promoters knew him, artists knew him, people knew him, and that's because he turned up to gigs. One thing I did as well is I would just turn up to gigs and get backstage if I can, but if not, even if not getting backstage, just talk to the door staff, talk to the artist liaison, talk to the promoter. That's one thing that I heard Henry Fong talk of, what I hear Amplified talk of, and what I definitely did is I just showed up. I just showed up at places and supported the smaller promoters because it was fun, obviously, and also because I would like an opportunity to play there and to work there and stuff. So that's one thing that I would say if you're looking at taking this full time, or you aspire to be a full-time musician, that's one thing that I would start doing, aside from all the other stuff that you probably got in your head that you need to start doing, like making tunes, making content and mixing and stuff. Showing up to events and seeing what it's really like, and working back of house jobs as well if possible. I first started working in the music industry. I was doing artist liaison for Viper Recordings. I used to do artist liaison at Fire nightclub in Vauxhall. I met a lot of the artists there. Some of them I made more friendships than others, and I was making tunes then. It would have been like around 2014, 15, something like that. I had the opportunity, and I bit it off with. I bit it off. I snapped at the chance. So big up Assad who gave me that chance. Yeah, it was a real insight to the music industry, and I love doing artist liaison as well. I also done some like back of house stuff at Rough Tempo, some audio, sound engineering stuff, and so that was I knew I wanted to be in the industry because I was doing this stuff and I wasn't getting paid very much at all. It was more of a passion project. It was just something I loved doing, and it was an opportunity for me to meet these artists that I aspired to be, and all the while I was making tunes as well. They weren't very good, but I was making tunes. So yeah, do what you can. Offer your services, and if an opportunity comes or an opportunity arises, just snap it up with both hands. There's lots of successful labels and promoters now at the moment, and if you have an opportunity to work with them or work for them, even if it's for nothing, offer your services for free. I guarantee you it helps. Second thing I want to go into about being a full-time artist and the pros and cons. If you are lucky enough to get the momentum and your tracks are building hype and your content is doing well, if you go full-time, money your money has to come from your art, and that can put pressure on the art. So, in the words of Rick Rubin, I read his book, The Creative Act. Great book. I would highly recommend that. He actually recommends to stay in employment for as long as you can, so that the art doesn't become like, it doesn't suffer, so that you have to. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to make this type of music for my artist name because I think it's going to sell well, or because the label says it's going to sell well. So the long route around it is having a part-time job and then doing this stuff on the side. And I did that, and there was a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of risk, sacrifice for potentially no reward. I've had part-time jobs for longer than I can remember, temporary jobs, minimum wage jobs. Some jobs I enjoyed more than others, but all the while I was just working harder and harder on the music. And I'm glad I did those jobs, because I know what the alternative is now, and I love what I do now. I'm kind of spinning a few, what's the term where you're spinning a few plates at once? I have my Patreon, which I love, and I want to provide people value on there. That's a source of income, and I have gigs, and then my music, stuff like that. But money is that. Let's face it, that will be your number one issue, whether you take the music full time or not. So just take that into consideration, and don't rush. Don't feel like you have to rush into being a full-time artist until it feels right, and until you feel that you can just live off of the art. So that would be my take on it, my advice. Next thing is timing. What I mean by timing is so important, because when my last minimum wage job, which was April 2023, it come to an end. It was for a software development company. I was a teaching assistant, so I was still learning. So it was basically like learning on the job. It was really, really low pay, but it was, I was just doing it to learn, and I was earning a bit of money. They said, Gino, we don't need you anymore. Contract's finished. And I just wrote Never Let You Go VIP, and I had a New Zealand tour booked. And to be honest, I was living with family at the time. I'm currently living with family, and I was just able to take the hit and be like, you know what? Let's just give this a go. So, and the timing of that, and the fact that the tune, there was something about the tune that just resonated with people. The people were ready to accept that sound. They really loved that sound. I don't know what it was. There's something in the water that day, or everyone woke up on a certain side of the bed, that when they received that song, and still when I play it now, it goes off. But there was something about when that tune dropped at the time, it just, people wanted to play it. And I feel like you need big tunes for your momentum to start, but that's not the be all and end all. You also have to have a community as well. So it was, even though it was hard when I had the big tune that dropped, it was like, yep, cool, but now you have to do another one and another one and another one, which I knew that was the case anyway. So even as I was writing Never Let You Go, I think I've talked about this in another video in a roundabout way. As soon as I'd finished writing Never Let You Go, I kind of was already onto the next one as well, which is a pattern that a lot of producers do, and some of the new guys as well. I love seeing the replication of this, basically history just repeating itself. Artists like JB, Herbs, is new guys that they'll have a massive bootleg, and by the time the heat started dying down on that bootleg, bang, they've got another bootleg on the rounds. That's not easy to do. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I love seeing when that starts happening, yeah, that's when it's it's being able to show that you're able to write consistent bangers. I think I've said that before as well. But these things are all really, really important when considering if you want to go full time in music, or for being a full time artist. But yeah, really keen to know what you think on this. It is a really rewarding job. It's such a I would do anything to keep this, and I really would like to. I love writing music, and I can see myself in the future writing music in some way, shape or form, engineering music, mixing down, working something in this industry, particularly on the musical side of things, as opposed to the certain admin-y side of things. I love the music. So yeah, I'm really, really keen to know what you think on this. Let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.